Welcome back to the Foreign Desk podcast. I'm Lisa Daftari. Today's top stories on the Foreign Desk: U.S. and Iran's regime claiming progress in the Iran nuclear talks, and lawmakers and veterans are pushing for the Biden administration to rescue over 20,000 Afghan commandos remaining behind in Afghanistan. You can find these stories and more at foreigndesknews.com, and make sure to sign up for our daily email, Lisa's Top 10, to get them delivered straight to your inbox each morning. And of course, today we continue our conversation on promoting freedom, on fighting national security threats, whether they come from ISIS or the local school district. And we have the perfect guest to talk about national security threats that come in the local variety. I'm very excited to welcome to the show California Representative Kevin Kiley, a Republican in California. Sounds like an oxymoron, right? But Representative Kiley is quite popular or unpopular, depending on where you sit, representative, and he has won statewide, I should say nationwide, acclaim for speaking out about parental choice and transparency and taxation and crime. And he has authored successful bills that advance education and public safety and criminal justice reform. It sounds like California could be a utopia if only you were in charge. And Representative Kiley, who is also an attorney, you've worked in the private sector, also served as Deputy Attorney General. And in the Assembly, you have served on a bunch of committees, Vice Chair of the Assembly Education Committee and Privacy Consumer Protection. We're going to get to the Education Committee. I know. There's breaking news on that. And he's also a member of the Housing Community and Community Development Committee, Judiciary, there's so many, right? Higher Education Committee, Judiciary Committee. But most of you probably know him from social media with his viral tweets and posts that really just say it like it is. Welcome to the show, Representative Kiley.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it.
I'm trying to speak as fast as I can because there's so much, and I obviously want to include it all. I was asking my producer, who actually is working remotely right now. I'm in Los Angeles, and he's not. And I said, I feel like he's not, Representative Kiley isn't just a local figure here. I feel like nationwide, I've seen your posts, your tweets, retweeted by friends all across the country. And I think so many people could relate to what you say, and you say it in such pithy, wonderful, minimal characters. And you really represent the people, whether it's in California or elsewhere. And as they say, as goes California, so goes the rest of the nation, as we're seeing in many, many instances. Let's talk about the warrior that you are, whether it's digitally or otherwise, in person in California. I know you're fighting for us and doing whatever you can to bring some sanity to this place, as you said in your Twitter bio. Why do you do what you do? I want to just talk about you personally. Like, what is it that motivates you? What makes you really go back and do it every day, as hard as it can be? In California, it can be a very tough place for a Republican, especially one that is so outspoken.
Well, I believe California is worth fighting for. But we have the greatest state in the country that has, so many things to offer and has, stood for everything that's great about our country, the promise, the American dream, the California dream, and it's just being ruined by corrupt politicians who are driving the state into the ground. And I think that we need to stop that. We need to turn this around. We need to save our state. There are so many patriotic, dedicated people out there in California who are, who want to fight as well. And so that's what motivates me every day to do the best job I can to be an advocate for sanity at the state capitol.
What would you say? Because I think there's so many people who are almost, overwhelmed, I would say even anxious about everything that's going on. They have a long list of things that are bothering them about the current political and social climate, particularly in California. What do you think, or what would you say are on your short list of items that are most detrimental, that will do the most damage to this state and to this country long term?
Oh gosh, that would be, there's so many things to choose from. But I think that what's been going on in our education system is just absolutely appalling. In California, we have pretty much the worst public education system in the country. That was before the schools are shut down here longer than any other state. And now we just see one thing after another that is just an assault on the rights of parents when it comes to the vaccine mandate for students, which exists in California but no other state. when it comes to the mask mandate. Some schools are trying to get toddlers to wear N95s. I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable. And what we've seen happen is that, our young people have just paid an incalculable price for the, unwise and in many cases very corrupt decisions made by political leaders like Gavin Newsom over the last year and a half, but in many ways, 2 years really. But in many ways, that's just accelerated a lot of the problems that already existed in California before. We've had the highest poverty in the country, the most homelessness, among the biggest achievement gaps in our schools, deteriorating infrastructure. Right now we have the highest unemployment rate, you name it. It is getting worse and worse every year, to the point where now more people are leaving the state this last year than came here.
Right. The statistics are there, and it's almost as if they don't connect the dots. And you brought up, and I'll get back to education, because I know that you come from a family of educators, and you yourself have experience in teaching high school, and that probably shapes so much of why you're so passionate about the public school system here. But you mentioned Gavin Newsom, and I know he mentions you a lot too. And I find it interesting because you are obviously on his radar. You are obviously getting under his skin, and you're obviously speaking on behalf of so many people. And the fact that he calls you out tells me you're doing something right, obviously, right? Do you ever fear that your platform might get canceled because you are questioning the almighty Gavin Newsom?
Well, they've certainly tried. I mean, they just stripped my position as vice chair of the education committee. I've been in the education committee for 5 years since I've been in the legislature. I'm a former teacher myself, and yet they said, "Oh no, you're speaking out against the corruption and what the harm that's being done to our kids. We need to try to take that platform away from you." But this has been tried since I was elected. They've tried to move my office. They've tried this. They've tried that. The governor, of course, makes these remarks. All it does is motivate me even more, because, it just shows why it is that our political system in California is so dysfunctional, that there is simply no room for counter argument or dissent or alternative viewpoints, or even like reason and common sense in a lot of cases. But I think that the reason they're sort of starting to panic now, and they're doing drastic things like removing me from the education committee, is they see that we're really, on the verge of something, that we've built up a movement, that people are paying attention like never before. People are getting involved in politics who have never been involved before. And that is a major threat to the scheme, or the whole system, the whole corrupt system that has been built at the Capitol. And, if more people get involved, then the jig is up for the political class and special interests that are running the state into the ground.
You were effective, and they removed you. And I think it's very difficult for so many people who are watching that. They try to be brave. They try to speak out. And that's exactly what your platform stands for, right? You're telling people, speak out, stand up. We're behind you. And there's many other people who will support you and stand behind you. But, for that parent who shows up at the school board meeting, or, decides to email the school about the N95 masks, as we've seen in Los Angeles here so much this week, how can we combat this when we try to stand up and the only response is to deplatform or to use cancel culture against us?
Well, I think that it is one of the biggest threats that we face as a state, a country, and around the whole world. These are international companies, although they started in California for the most part, is that they are seeking to sort of reinstitute the censorship that was sort of the norm before, the great innovations that were largely a product of America's founding fathers became the norm around the world, which is to have freedom of speech and open discussion and debate. And the idea that I may not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. Well, that doesn't exist at all anymore. And it is very dangerous when these social media companies have essentially become the modern town square. They are the site of discourse. They are where we are as a people deliberating on issues of profound importance. And if only one side of the argument is allowed, then that undercuts our ability to deal with every single problem that we face. So I think that that censorship and cancel culture and the like are a profound threat. That there are certain, I think, steps we could take legally and through legislation to try to protect the right to speak freely. But ultimately, I think the bigger problem, the deeper problem, is one of culture and education. that we're not teaching young people these days about civics, about America's founding principles. And I think that a renewed commitment to true civic education, that's ultimately going to be the thing that, sets us on the right course and restores our founding principles.
And speaking of big tech and censorship, are you on Rumble, Getter, Parler? What am I missing? Are you on the alternative conservative social media sites?
I've been meaning to get on there. I'm on, I kind of have a few to manage right now. And so I
was going to say, you're actually very successful on Twitter. I think you have a wonderful platform there and a wonderful, supportive audience. But I know a lot of people have taken a stand and have exited. The January 6th, it's the 1 year anniversary of when many of us lost tens of thousands of followers because they had a mass exodus out of Twitter. So time management is one thing, but do you think, conservatives should give up the left-leaning, big platforms, or should we stay there and fight?
Well, I wouldn't tell anyone sort of what to do in that respect. It's up to you what you think is the right thing, and I'd support whatever decision folks make because fact is that there are a lot of people on these platforms, and so if you just leave them all together, then you lose the ability to get your message out to them. On the other hand, you're forced to play by the rules of those who control the platform. So it's kind of a catch-22 in that sense, and I don't have a great answer for you. I mean, my goal is to reach as many people with our message as possible, and so I think that that's why I have been actually meaning to explore getting on more platforms.
Okay, we hope to see you there, I'm sure. And like I said, you're doing such a great work on Twitter that I hope you can stay there too and not have to worry about cancel culture. But getting back to school, we talked about you're the son of a special ed teacher, and you yourself began your career as a high school teacher in South Central Los Angeles. So you're speaking from experience when you say these public schools are flawed. You've seen it up close. And you're also the chair of the English department, and now you're an advocate for so many things, including school choice and curriculum and vaccines. How do the parents here in California, particularly Los Angeles, where I am, where do they start? How do they turn this thing around?
Well, they've already started. I mean, they've already made a lot of progress. You see the rallies that are happening at the Capitol. You see the people who are going to school board meetings across the state. You see the groups that have formed to bring parents together to fight back against mandates. You see a letter recently written by a bunch of school board members around the state protesting the state of emergency and all of the mandates. I think people are more engaged than they have ever been. You've seen already in places like Virginia, this movement produce real political results. Even in San Francisco, there's a recall right now of 3 school board members that is very likely going to pass. Even the mayor of San Francisco has endorsed the recall of these 3 school board members who refuse to open schools because they can see the power of this parents' movement. And so I would say that we're absolutely on the right track. And I'd say just continue to make your voice heard in every way you can. Continue to make your voice heard to every decision maker at every level. Continue to organize to bring more people into the process. And I think that this has the potential really to mark a dramatic change in California politics if this movement keeps growing.
And we had Sharon McKeeman from Let Them Breathe and Let Them Choose on our program a couple of weeks ago, right after her San Diego victory. And I know a lot of parents that were watching actually reached out to her to get local help and to have her organization stand behind their movements. So I think it is power in numbers. But I think when it comes down to it, a lot of people feel like we will be ultimately outnumbered. And then the choice will be to either move out of California, like you said, many are doing, or to homeschool.
Well, that's right. But I hope that we can provide, another option, which is to really make our state government start working for Californians again. I think that there is a broad majority of Californians who support basic changes to the way our school system is run and the way that our state is run. And you can see that in polling where people are overwhelmingly dissatisfied when it comes to the basic quality of life issues in California. We just haven't managed to channel that dissatisfaction into the sort of movement that can lead to real change. But I think that's why, things could be different. And 2022 is shaping up to be a very change-oriented year on the national political scene as well.
Well, we hope so. I want to shift gears and talk about crime a bit. You've introduced legislation to repeal Prop 47. God bless you. For those of you who don't live in California or you don't know what this is, it's called the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, which is just the opposite. It's a proposition that was passed under a very, very misleading name. It basically, there's three parts to the proposition, and Representative Kiley, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the main aspect of it is reducing drug possession and theft from a felony to a misdemeanor. And as you tweeted, it's a quaint notion, but I think stealing things should be treated as criminal conduct. You look around, big blue cities, LA, New York, Chicago, crime, murder up 50% at the very least. And here in Los Angeles, I know people are being robbed at gunpoint in the middle of the day in the nicest parts of the city. But at the end of the day, you don't see a lot of people connecting the dots and saying, hey, wait a minute, this is because of failed policy, or more accurately, this is because of failed politicians. And this speaks to the recall and why did it happen? And, what's going on, in your assessment of this? When will they wake up, and why haven't, how can we make people in California understand and connect the dots on what they're experiencing, what they're living through, and the fact that it's coming from these failed policies?
Well, I think they are seeing it like never before. And when you look at the crime issue, this is one of those things that's been building year by year by year in step with these failed policies, one after another. And now it's just reached the point where it's like no one can miss it. You have these just extraordinary smash and grab robberies occurring out in the open. People walk into department stores and just walk out with the merchandise and don't even care if they're seen. People don't feel safe in their communities. You have murders, the murder rate at an all-time or high for the last several decades in California. And so I think that, oftentimes the process of change, happens more gradually than you might like. But you reach a certain tipping point where suddenly people see that, the status quo is completely unacceptable. And I think that we are reaching that point here in California. When you look at, the recalls, for example, of the district attorneys in San Francisco and Los Angeles, that many so-called progressive people are supporting, because this is a basic quality of life, nonpartisan issue that we need to have safe communities. There needs to be consequences for criminal conduct. And so I think that's just another issue that is bringing the pendulum back the other way in California.
Well, why? I mean, and to your point, because I do talk to a lot of people that I agree with your point 100%, where they feel like something's got to change, and it's because of far left people like Gascon. But why didn't the recall work for the governor?
Well, the recall did work in a lot of ways. It qualified for the ballot. It gathered more signatures than any petition drive in United States history. It built a movement unlike anything we have ever seen in our state's history. Brought, many, many, many people into the process, volunteering, and paying attention to what's going on. And up until the very end, the polls showed that it was actually like a toss-up, had a very good chance of success. There were a number of reasons why in the last few weeks, the Newsom and his cronies kind of reached into their bag of tricks and spent huge amounts of money and managed to get the outcome that they wanted. But that was, a very minor, setback in the broader, I think, course of our political movement here, which is to say that, I have not seen at all the momentum stop after the recall. If anything, I think that people have gotten even more engaged and are very excited about the opportunities ahead in 2022.
So that was my next question. What is your, unicorn list of what will it take to make this a better state in 2022? What will it take to vote in, perhaps a Republican candidate? What will it take to get rid of Gascon? I mean, what are the, handful of things that it will take, and, how can we help?
Well, it'll take people being motivated and being involved and being active. Of course, voting, but also just being, present at every site of political decision making, being involved in campaigns, running for office yourself. And we need to, have change at every single level of government: school boards, city councils, boards of supervisors, special districts, the legislature, assembly and Senate, Congress, the statewide offices, all of which are on the ballot this coming year, as well as ballot propositions. There are some great ballot propositions where Californians will have the chance to do things like provide school choice, and stop future tax increases. And they'll be on the ballot this year as well. And so I think that if you're someone who has always wanted to sort of take that step, to be more involved in the political process, this is the year to do it. And you can follow my blog. I provide ways to do that. Just search my name, Kevin Kiley blog. You'll find it. And you can sign up for my emails that way. I'll keep you informed about what's going on. But I think this is a very exciting time.
And I will tag your blog and your social media pages on our YouTube as well, and on our websites when we promote this video. I want to move over to COVID, vaccines, masking. LA has, I think, by far the highest number of cases per capita in California, and we also have the strictest regimen of, mask enforcement, whether it's in schools or restaurants or outdoor masking. There's so much madness, and it seems like we're not following the science. We're getting farther and farther from the science. The CDC turns around and says, well, 5 days of quarantining, 6 days of quarantining if you don't show symptoms, but you have to quarantine for 5 more days. But if you're showing symptoms after the 6th day, you can go back to work, you can go back to school. It seems like people are A, confused, and B, it looks like they just keep walking everything back. I don't know. Personally, I sit back and I think, okay, this is getting so crazy. Everyone's just gonna start revolting in some ways, meaning stop wearing masks, or just refuse to show their vaccine passports when they go to restaurants or schools or events. It just keeps getting worse, and we just keep drinking the Kool-Aid and walking forward like sheep in the way that they want us to. Like you said, I do believe a lot of people are waking up. But what can they do? What can they do when they see these discrepancies, when they see the hypocrisy, and they are forced to put their kids in masks and maybe vaccinate their 5-year-olds when they don't want to, because they just want to be a part of society? They don't want their child to miss the basketball game, and they want to walk into a restaurant and eat normally. I mean, what can people do?
Well, people can, as I was saying before, they can use it as added motivation to really, get involved, to change these decisions. And I think that, in terms of like what sort of things you comply with and what you don't, I think that's a personal decision for people to make on their own. I can say in my area, the sheriffs, for example, are not enforcing mask mandates, curfews, things like that. They're focusing on real criminals. But, you as a citizen, as much as they try to limit your voice and to make you feel like you have no influence, we still are, at the end of the day, supposed to be a government of, by, and for the people. And I think that, we have more people than ever who are intent on proving that that is still the case. So when you see things, when you run into these just horrible policies that are such an affront to your liberty as a citizen, to your privacy, to your rights, just use it as added motivation to fight back in the way that will make the biggest difference of all, and that's to get new leadership.
Right. So other than waiting to vote and waiting for these recalls to hopefully take place, is there anything that can be done? I mean, people, like you said, day to day, people are living in a way that their freedoms are being stripped of them. Their children are being just scarred. We don't even know what the actual repercussions will be for these children, this generation of COVID kids. And it just seems like they're toying with us at this point, especially in Los Angeles. I know I keep speaking about Los Angeles, but that's probably one of the most egregious cases in the country. New York City and Los Angeles, I would say maybe Los Angeles wins on that one. But and because I'm here, I'm living it, I see it, and I know a lot of people are frustrated. But it seems like, again, you go to a restaurant, you got to take it out. You go to the kid's school, you got to take out your passport. You have to comply in order, not to be marginalized from society. And we're all set for the elections that are upcoming. But what do we do in the interim?
Well, I'm not someone, I don't have all the answers. I've provided some good ways that I think people can fight back. But I see people fighting back in new and innovative ways every day. And so I would just say, use whatever tools you have at your disposal to make your voice heard, to express your dissatisfaction, and try to use the instruments of political change that our founders provided to get things moving in the other direction. And I think that we are reaching the point where, more and more people are just fed up and are looking for a different direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thank you for using your voice, and I think you encourage a lot of people to use theirs. And you use a lot of, I think, humor and sarcasm, and I think people like that. And I think it's a great way to get the point across and to make people feel validated in the way that they feel as well. Thank you for your leadership. I know it's a tough place to be in California, and to have the opinions that you do, and to do so courageously. And we thank you for that. For the rest of you who'd like to follow Representative Kiley, I will link all of his social media platforms as well as his blog below this video. And for those who'd like to sign up for our weekly podcast, you can go to youtube.com/Lisa Daftari. And to sign up for our daily top 10 email, go to foreigndesknews.com and you can sign up there. Thank you so much, and see you all next week.